Hi, I'm Hitesh Jeff, and I am a mindfulness and meditation practitioner, author, as well as an inspirational speaker. And this is In Conversation with the Masters. And in this series, I will be in conversation with open minded, open hearted, and conscious living people from across the globe who will be answering some of life's most profound questions. And today, I have the honor and privilege of sitting with and having a conversation with Alison Coates, who is the founding member of Revo, as well as a GENOS certified emotional intelligence practitioner and a life coach. Alison holds a degree in industrial psychology and has over 25 years of experience in business change management consultancy and project management. So all of these drive Revo's mission to collaborate with and build teams of professionals that use outcomes-driven methods of coaching and learning to create impactful results and inspire sustainable progress. Alison, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Hitesh. It's really great to speak to you again. Been looking forward to today.
We are going to be talking primarily about emotions because I know that is what you specialize in. So maybe we'll start there and then we'll see how the conversation evolves. And I know part of your name, Revo, is about revolution or maybe evolution. Is that right? Where does the name Revo come from?
It's exactly as you say. So, naming something is quite difficult because a name often has it, the name can imply certain things to certain people. So it took me a long time. It took me about 6-7 months to actually decide on a name. I knew what I didn't want it to be, and then you have to think about what you do want it to be. But I knew that my business was about change, and not just change for change's sake, and not just change on one day and then a month later we go back to where we were before. Really thinking about the type of change that drives growth, that drives motivation, that drives engagement. And that's the kind of change that is, in my mind, when I was thinking about it, how I would describe that, revolutionary, because it has that sense of dramatic, like it's dramatic, isn't it? But in a positive way. And so revolution was the word that was playing around in my mind for some time. And it then just struck me to use, much like we do with our own names. I'm Alison, but I'm often called Ali. We have a shortening of it. So Revo comes from the first 4 letters in revolution or revolutionary. So that's, yes. So the name itself implies change.
And I know that you like to use the preposition of re. You always use, those 2 letters re with a lot of the words that you use to describe your business. And and when you mention Revo, I'm thinking, I have this image of this arrow that has to be sort of pulled back in order to really move forward. Do you align with that kind of thinking that, sometimes we have to go back in order to actually go forward, to rebuild?
Well, isn't that the definition of what resilience is? So resilience is about being able to bounce back, but at the same stage as bouncing back, you're not just stuck in this space of inertia of not being able to do anything. It's actually you're bouncing back from that stressful, negative, challenging experience. So you've bounced back from it, but at the same time you are moving forward into a new, more empowering, productive, powerful space. So yes, it is. It's about, I love that analogy of the bow and arrow, of being pulled back so that it can move forward. And often that pulling back is taking stock. It's thinking about, where am I? What is the status quo right now? what is driving the challenge, the stress, the negativity? That's the pulling back. Where is this coming from? What trigger? All those questions. What values? What belief system? All of that is that pulling back of the arrow. And then being, in order that we gain the knowledge, we gain the wisdom. So our next first step can be more productive, empowering, powerful.
So I'm going to just maybe pull you back a bit, because we need to talk about resilience, but maybe a little later on, because that is something that is the power word of the decade, resilience. And I know that you specialize in this as well. So let's start with emotions. Let's start there and let's see where this goes. Now, I know that we are emotional beings. And not only that, I have this belief that we are human beings that are emotional drug addicts. You can forget coffee, you can forget all the other drugs that are out there, but I believe human beings are most addicted to our emotions. So we are always chasing some kind of emotion to feel good. Either we want to feel love, or we want to feel happiness, or we want to feel excited. We are chasing all of these emotions. And we also know that adverts also play in a way to trigger some kind of emotional response to get us to buy things. So are you able to unpack for us what are emotions and why are they important and how do they drive our lives? I will repeat those questions if we need to, but what do you have to say?
Sure.
What are emotions?
Yeah. So it all comes down to biology. It's all about, and I can speak about this for a long time, because I get quite excited when I start getting into this topic. But it's the science of neuroscience. It's the science of the brain. Our brain is our most important organ in our body. Some people might say according to the brain, but yes, it is the most important organ in our body. It is there every single day looking out for us. It's there primed for our survival. And the brain, I'm just going to speak very, very, very at a very simple level. Every single day, our brain is looking out for whether or not an event, a chanced meeting with somebody, a conversation with somebody, an experience is safe or dangerous. Our brain is primed to look for that. It's the first thing that happens. And these decisions are made 5 times a second. I'm going to say that again, 5 times a second, not every 5 seconds, 5 times in a second. Our brain is saying, even like me with you now, my brain right now is saying, is this a safe environment, a dangerous environment? Is this safe, dangerous? Do I feel accepted? Don't I feel accepted? Does Hitesh feel like he's part of my team? Does he feel outside of my team? All of these questions, they're at an unconscious level, but it's there for our survival. It's primed for our survival. So the first thing that happens is at an emotional level, our brain decides safe or dangerous. If it's safe, then it feels like a meaningful experience. It feels happy. It feels engaging. If it's dangerous, it might feel threatening. It might feel stressful. It might feel uncertain. So the first thing that happens is our brain makes these decisions based on years and years, for me, years and years, because I'm not 5 now, I'm a different age, but my history, my already always listening for an event, my past experiences, all those experiences, they build up and they form those triggers, those primes that our brain is looking out for. And once that decision has been made 5 times a second, that information is then passed from your emotional side of the brain through to your thinking side of the brain. If that emotion is on a positive, safety, it's meaningful, it's exciting, it's engaging, then the thinking brain will think about it in terms of, well, this is a good experience, or this is an experience that I can easily engage in. And then what happens is, science tells us that when we're in this positive frame of mind, the decisions and the behaviors that we then adopt are far more expansive. They are far more productive, positive in nature, versus that person that's had that dangerous, stressful experience. Their thinking brain will go into a different decision making and have different options around the behaviors that they take. They tend to be more linear in fashion. They tend to be more reactive rather than responsive, which is a more positive way to behave. So it all comes down to biology. And this activity happens for our survival. The brain is looking for that saber-toothed tiger about to come and bite us. And it comes down to biology and our own survival. So why are we so primed to always be looking out for that happy experience, that satisfying experience? Because it makes us feel good, and we get a rush of all of those feel-good hormones, and that's what drives our activities. That's what drives our decision making and our behaviors. Some of them, most of the time, we know, are driven at an unconscious level. We know that we are actually only conscious 15% of the time. 85% of the time, we are making our decisions, and our behaviors are so rote fashion. They're such a habit. And so we need to learn the art of becoming more self-aware, so that we can understand the different triggers, so that we can understand the different things that are driving our decisions and our behaviors, so that we can go after more of the positive, empowering behaviors. Because sometimes always chasing that carrot, whatever it might be, maybe the carrot is always chasing love in different ways, or always chasing happiness in different ways. It might not always be positive in nature. We know this. People chase things perhaps sometimes for the wrong reasons, but they are, because of the way that our brains work and the triggers work and the way that we are primed, only 15% of the time are they actually even conscious of why they are chasing those emotions and those feelings.
Yeah. Well, if you're having our brain make a decision 5 times a second, I'm pretty sure that we are not conscious of most of, those reasonings, or, all of those filters that are happening behind the scenes. But go on.
I was just going to say, and that's why it's so important, the work that you do around mindfulness, because being able to be present, being able to be more mindful, helps us to start to notice what is happening in the moment, identify the trigger, and then also start to understand and identify the patterns that we have in our day, in our lives, so that we can unravel them where we need to support ourselves in having a more empowering, a more powerful experience.
You mentioned that a human being is looking at a situation and trying to decide whether this situation is safe for me or whether it's not safe for me. But that reminds me of, or that makes me think that that is a very primitive brain that we have. Is it not time for us to now evolve? Because we should not be in that state of fight or flight, looking out for that tiger that's going to be coming out to pounce us, because we don't live in that reality anymore. Yet we are still operating from that state. Surely we cannot be now living in this day and age after thousands and thousands of years of having been around. Surely we can't only be operating from a purely biological space. Don't we need to bring in now the emotional side of it, the mental side of it, as well as the spiritual side of it? What do you think?
Absolutely. Yeah, so I think some people are better able to do that because they have the self-discipline to do the work, to make sure that they're doing the daily habits that somebody who is more self-aware, aware of others, can have more authentic conversations, all of these more emotionally intelligent behaviors. So some people are better able to do that than others. I don't say that in a derogatory sense, because I also believe that we don't know what we don't know until we know it. So we're not taught any of this at school. We're not taught any of this in our education. It's really only when we stumble and knock our head a few times, or if we are fortunate enough to grow up in the kind of family that teaches us these good self-discipline behaviors. So it's only really through life experiences or through being curious enough to go down the path and learn for yourself that we understand and learn a different way of being. Because we must remember that it's important for our brain to be that reptilian brain, to be looking out for survival for us, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to function as humans. We would, if the brain didn't work the way that it did, if it wasn't working at an unconscious level, and if it wasn't looking out for the safety or danger, we would be walking around constantly surprised. We would.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't know, like you've just laughed at me right now, but I know that you're laughing at what I just said, so that's appropriate.
Yeah.
If I didn't have that unconscious already, I already understand the concept of comedy and of somebody having a laugh of what I've said. Otherwise, I'd be like, oh, he's just laughed at me. Now what? So, it has a role to play. But I also believe that we can learn the skills and learn we can learn this. We can learn the skills. We can apply the techniques and the tools that will help us to become more conscious about the decisions that we make on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I think.
And no, go ahead. Sorry, Hitesh. Yeah.
No, I just wanted to share what you just said, that how nice it would be if we had a course in school, or just a subject in school, how to manage our internal state, our mental state, our emotional state, because we are taught how to organize other things in our life externally, but we never thought how to keep this house clean on the inside. And it would be great if we had that kind of
Absolutely. Yeah. And like I said, you only know what you know when you know it. And somebody would have guided you down that path, be it, if, like I said, like if you were fortunate enough, a parent or a teacher or somebody influential in your life, or you have grown up with a growth mindset where you are always looking for answers. You're curious, you happy to learn different ways of doing things. You're happy to practice. You're happy to fail. You're happy to ask for feedback. You're happy to understand how other people perceive you. So there's a lot of factors that come into play here. The bottom line for me, though, and I say this on all of my courses that I do around resilience, is what resilient people do is not special. We have to realize that we all have pockets of resiliency, and we've all done resilient things over our lifetime. What we need to recognize is that what resilient people do is they have the self-discipline to put into practice on a regular basis the things that resilient people do, like mindfulness practice, a healthy lifestyle, maintaining connection with other human beings. There's lots of different things that help us to become more resilient in our lifetime.
I know the work that I do involves people not being emotional. And if you take the word emotion, the last three letters of that word is ION, which is an ion. And an ion is an atom that has a charge to it. And because it has a charge to it, it's a little bit unstable. It might be positive or it might be negative. And I try to, or I support people in not being emotional where they are moving up and down this curve, like going on a roller coaster, but to be just traveling along that straight road. And I know part of the work you do is to get people from feeling those emotional highs and those lows as well, but just to be able to be in a state of equanimity. But why are we always wanting to feel those high states of emotions? Because what goes up must come down, and that's when people crash. Why are we addicts to these emotions? And is there a way that we can overcome this addiction?
Well, it's like any addiction, I suppose. It's that feel-good factor. It's those hormones that make us feel good, even if it's just in that second that it happens. You know, that instant feeling of that buzz that we get from the positive emotion. Some people get a buzz from the negative emotions too. Don't worry. You know, there's that trigger that happens, isn't it? So yes, and I have to agree with you. It's about that taking that emotional charge out of the conversation that you're having, out of the experience that you're having. Yes, so as I was saying, you know, it's about taking that emotional charge out of the experience or the conversation, whatever's going on at that point in time. And what you and I teach in different ways is just about noticing the emotion. Noticing what's going on in that moment. What's going on for me right now in this moment? Noticing it without any judgment or without any criticism or self-loathing or anything like that. It's really just about noticing it in that moment and allowing yourself to move on, like we said in the beginning, move forward. So yes, that for me, I would agree with you. It is about the appropriateness of the response in that moment. And for me, that's the language that I would use. The response is driven by an emotion, isn't it? So it is about helping our clients to understand and to come down or to come up from those very extreme emotions where they are not appropriate in that setting.
I am certain that you've had the experience of peace, joy, bliss, love, and contentment. I'm sure you had those experiences. And as someone who does this kind of work, I feel that you would agree with me, but I need to ask you, do you agree with me? That those emotions, those are far more powerful and far more expansive than the feel-good emotions that we are chasing, the excitement, the happiness, you know, those emotions, those neutral emotions is what I call them, because they're not high. They don't take you on a high or a low. They are just there. Silence, stillness, bliss. All of those are non-emotional. They are neutral. They're not charged. They are not an ion. So would you agree that, you know, we sold this idea that we need to chase happiness, but I think peace and stillness is not as sexy. We are not able to market peace and joy as much as we are able to market excitement and happiness. Would you agree?
Well, yes, the media would definitely answer that question for both of us, because the media is enticing us to those states of excitement, of extreme happiness. I might argue that everything is on a scale, isn't it? I could be happy in the moment, and for me, my experience of what happiness is could be quite a peaceful experience of happiness, versus another person could also experience happiness, but their experience of happiness is like a supercharged rocket and they're all over the place. So whilst I do agree with you that there are emotions that are neutral, and it's good neutral in terms of the charge that they hold, I also think that emotions are quite personal. And for me, I always encourage my clients to really think about, what does this mean for me? How does this show up for me? How am I being when I'm being X? Happy, joyful, peaceful? Because we interpret things quite differently, and it's really important to understand, how does this show up for me, so that I know when I'm being happy, if I'm that person who's scoring like number 20 on the scale of 0 to 10, that how that might be perceived or experienced by somebody else where happiness is only a 1 or a 2. It's really important to understand awareness of self and awareness of others. So yes, I do think that there are those emotions where things flow better and things seem to be more aligned, but I have a sense that they might be more personally driven in terms of how the person perceives them. Do you understand what I'm trying to say there?
Yeah, I do. I think, and this comes back to the question that I asked: what are emotions? Because I've spent many years trying to understand this thing. Is it something that comes because, as you were sharing that something happens on the outside and we have a response or a reaction to that, therefore it will trigger some kind of emotional reaction or response? Or is it when you eat like a banana, you feel happy because you release all of those serotonin in your bloodstream? Do emotions, do they come from the inside, or can they be put into our body either by eating a banana or even smoking weed? Because there's actually this running joke that says, if the whole world smoked weed at one time, there will be world peace. So are emotions something that we can put into our body through the ingestion of food or even psychedelics? Or are we the only source of it? Uh, what are emotions? Where does it come from? Is it a chemical? Is it spiritual? What is it?
Well, I would say that there are emotions that are spiritual. And yeah, I had not actually really thought about it in the context of what you're saying right now, Hitesh, in terms of, is an emotion something that we could ingest? That's an interesting idea. What I do know, though, is that when we are looking after ourselves from a holistic wellness perspective, we are eating good food, we are practicing good sleep hygiene, we are practicing good lifestyle hygiene, like we are doing some exercise every day, we are looking after the words that we use, the language that we use. When we're practicing all these good habits, our body is better able to relate, respond. It's not overly tired. It's not overly taxed by having to digest lots of really rich foods or sugar-dense foods. So there's more energy in the body to be able to deal with day-to-day activities. And because we've got more energy in the body to be able to deal with all these day-to-day activities, we're making better decisions and we're acting more appropriately in the moment, because our body is not only in that fight and flight mode, it's also in the thrive space. So I do believe that the decisions we make on a daily basis in terms of our habits, our activities, our lifestyle choices will ultimately affect our ability to be able to have appropriate emotional responses. So yes, eating a banana that's full of potassium and all the healthy things would be good for the body, good for the digestion, good for the gut. So I suppose you could say that it would affect how your emotional responses later on in that day or in the weeks ahead. Like I know for myself, I know for myself, if I've been away for a weekend and we've had late nights and we've not really necessarily watched, had all our veggies, we haven't done any exercises, I actually feel tired, I feel drained, I feel not able to react to things. I get irritated more quickly than if I've been looking after myself.
I just wanted to also add to that by saying that I know that when I do not take my vitamin B12 jab, which I take every now and again, I become very low. I feel sad, in fact. In fact, I will go as far as to say I feel a bit depressed. And there was, one time where I had taken my B12 jab and suddenly I just felt this rush I just felt good. I feel happy and I felt like I was smiling and laughing and joking again. And I also know that when I'm hungry and if I haven't eaten, if I skip lunch, I become really annoying and I start just, shouting at people. If I don't sleep as well, if I don't get enough sleep, I'm just not the best person to be around. So I think people also need to not just think, oh, it's all in my head. I'm just a completely emotionally unintelligent. Whereas we are multifaceted, we are emotional, physical, spiritual. We are all of this and we need wellness in all of those areas.
100%. And a lot of this, because it can be demonstrated, like we could say, let's think of an example. How well does Alison demonstrate her ability to manage her moods on a day-to-day basis? I can ask people that on a scale of 1 to 10, how well do you think I demonstrate managing my moods? How well do you think I demonstrate being able to make ethical decisions? There's lots of, we can demonstrate all of these things. When we can demonstrate something, we can measure it. And when we can measure it, we can improve it.
Yes.
So just because somebody listening to this recording or on one of your forums a little bit later might think, oh, but I'm all in my head all the time. I don't have any of these things. It's not to say that that's how you have to always be. Because we know that with a little bit of self-discipline, with some lifestyle changes, which comes back to the habits and the self-discipline again, and doing the things that people who are in a more powerful, empowering, positive frame of mind. I'm trying not to use the word, always use the big emotionally intelligent words and language. But if we can adopt some of these practices in our own lives, then we can look to some of these behaviors ourselves and find out how we in our own life, in our own context, can look to improve them, enhance them, and bring more of those type of behaviors and experiences into our lives.
When we meet people, the first thing we say is hi, or greet in whichever way, good morning. And then there's famous 3 words that follow. How are you? And when I was thinking about having this conversation with you, I was thinking about emotions because I know this is what you specialize in. And I got to thinking something that I never thought about before. Why do we say, how are you? And I started thinking, is that the right question to ask? How? How are you? Because should it not be, or should it not also be, why are you? Or what are you? Or where are
Mm.
you? So, and we also can't ask the question, how are you, without being prepared to spend 10 minutes listening to how this person is. I think we are very rude because I would just come to you and ask you, Alison, how are you? And you would answer with just one word, good. And then you would just to be not rude, and not just you, but everybody else does this, right? Just to not be rude, you would also ask, oh, I'm good. How are you? So it's a very short response. I'm good. I'm good. Let's carry on with the conversation. So first of all, we are not being true, we are not being honest when we answer that question, because nobody is just good. I've never in any moment, I will very rarely have I've been, yeah, I'm good. What does it mean to be good? You know, there's no context, there's no color, there's no explanation, there's no story. So are we asking the right, firstly, are we asking the right question? How are you? Or should we not be asking why, what, or who?
So I think it's just a habit, isn't it? We say, "How are
Yeah.
you?" Fine. How are you? Fine. And we move on. I think we've unlearned how to be curious enough to really inquire as to how somebody is, because it's become so much part of our, let's get over the formalities and let's get down to the thing we need to do today. And yes, perhaps asking, how are you doing, or are you okay, ought to be followed up by why, or oh, that's quite interesting, what's going on for you.
Mm.
And if somebody says good, maybe we need to be vulnerable enough to say to them, what does good mean for you? How does good, what's good? What is good? And I also think we take the easy road.
Yeah.
So we know that if you give somebody a multiple choice question with 5 options, they're going to choose number 3 more often than not.
Okay. Wow.
And it's the same with us saying, oh, I'm good, I'm fine, I'm all right, I'm okay. Because it's just it's easy. And so that's the second thing. And then the third thing is, I also believe that we feel too embarrassed, shy, awkward, uneasy, insecure to say how we really feel.
Yeah.
So it's easier for us not to have to be vulnerable in the moment and just say, I'm fine.
And this
And
is
us,
why, yes, yeah. Go
no,
on.
carry on.
No, I just
I was
want
going
to
to say, nice.
say.
Yeah. You
Okay,
see,
go.
you and I are doing it already. We're doing it already. We're like, our mindful listening is completely
Yes,
terrible.
yes.
If you're listening to this recording, don't follow what we're doing here, because we keep interrupting each other.
Mhm. Yes.
All I was going to say is, I've recently, somebody's recently been started asking me, which is quite nice, what would you like to express? So rather than saying, how are you? They say to me, what would you like to
Nice.
express? And it's quite a nice way of saying it, isn't it? So it's a
Hmm.
different way. Yeah.
So you've answered the question. Instead of saying how are you, it's such an emotional, intelligent response to say, what would you like to express? That is
Yeah.
so beautiful. I really, really love that. Of course, if you go, if I start doing that, people would look at me like I'm weird. But I think we need, this is the whole part of the, it's time for us to now really, really evolve to asking these questions, because a
Yeah.
part of asking, how are you? And taking time or making time to have the person express themselves is a part of, or is a sign that you are an emotional, intelligent person, because you are displaying that empathy. You are showing that you care, you are showing that you love, and you are acknowledging this other human being that is there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Great.
and I also think that, as you mentioned, the what I was trying to say while you were speaking and I was trying to speak over you, is that we are sold this idea that we must feel good all the time, and that we attach this negative sort of connotation or this negative label if we are feeling sad, or we are feeling depressed. And even the most successful people in the world have days in which they are down. And I think we need to speak more about that, that it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And that comes down to that whole fact of having authentic conversations and being vulnerable enough. In fact, it's similar to what Brené Brown says, isn't it? It's having the courage to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
So those two, it's quite important there. And I do think that the more we encourage people to be authentic about how they are feeling, the more we will start to be able to have far more powerful conversations with each other, far more meaningful conversations with each other. And I don't mean we always have to go and solve world peace or work out how to do, crazy scientific things in terms of having deep and meaningful conversations, but just really being able to be honest with each other about how one is feeling. Because to feel down on a day is fine, to feel down on a few days is fine, but when you are feeling down consistently, that is not good. And you need to be able to share that with someone else. Yeah.
I always allow myself time to feel down. I always give myself a time. Like if I'm feeling sad, then I say to myself, for the next 2 hours, I am going to feel sad. And I'm going to do a damn good job about feeling sad in the next 2 hours, because after that, it's over. That's just the method that I use. I give myself the permission and the time to feel sad, and I do it.
Yeah, it's absolutely. And it's exactly what I did. In fact, I did it last week, Tuesday. I don't know what happened. I'm quite proud of myself. I got to 32 days of lockdown without feeling down. And on Tuesday last week, which was day 32 or 33, I don't know. I woke up and the world was just not how it was for the previous 32 days.
Yes.
And by the time I got to lunchtime, I thought to myself, this is just really being silly. I was so distracted. Everything distracted me. My mood, I couldn't concentrate. And it just goes to show how your emotions are so powerful. And I'm quite a disciplined person. So for me to be distracted by my emotions, I was really disturbed by that. And then I also just decided, just be okay with it for one day out of 33 days. And I did. I just decided that was my journey for Tuesday last week. And then when I woke up on Wednesday morning, I immediately got into my normal action. So I got up, I made sure I did my exercise in the morning. I made sure that I had my healthy breakfast. I made sure that I did my journaling for the morning. I made sure that I set a schedule for myself for the day so that I worked my schedule. So I woke up on Wednesday morning intentional, and I made sure that I did the things that work for me. I know what works for me to get me out of a slump, but I allowed myself to have Tuesday to feel in that space. Yeah.
We are approaching the hour of this conversation, so it's time to actually round up this. But I want to spend another 10 minutes with you, if you would allow, because I have a few more questions. In fact, I have enough questions in my head right now to speak to you for like another hour, but let's stick to the 10 minutes.
We could always do part two. Part two.
Yes, if you would love to hear from Alison again, please leave a comment below so that we can actually get her back. And she has mentioned that we want to do a part 2, and I would love to have you back because this is such an important topic. But Alison, I would like to ask you if you could give a definition in maybe 2 or 3 sentences. What is emotional intelligence and why it is important?
Sure. So it's a very basic definition again. You can go to the textbook, you can go to Google, you can look up what emotional intelligence means. And remember that my context that I work in is mainly in corporates. So the language will probably sound a little bit corporate, but we can apply it outside of corporates as well.
Okay.
Being emotionally intelligent is about, here it is, about making emotionally intelligent decisions in a negative or stressful or challenging situation.
That's perfect.
Should I repeat it?
Yes, please.
It's about making emotionally intelligent decisions in a negative or stressful or challenging situation.
And that is exactly what I do as well. It's about being still while you are surrounded by the chaos. And
because we must remember that what emotionally intelligent people do and are, they are self-aware, so they tend to be more present. They have awareness of others, so they have empathy. They are able to have authentic conversations with people, so they have an element of vulnerability about them. There's characteristics that define those behaviors that people with this tagline of emotional intelligence tend to have. They are far more productive behaviors versus the non-productive behaviors where you are distracted, you are temperamental, you are you're not motivated, or you're not able to motivate or inspire yourself or other people. It's at a very basic level.
How has the technology of virtual reality and social media impacted our ability to be emotionally intelligent? Has it or has it not? Or what are your thoughts on that?
I think we need to be more emotionally intelligent in our digital world, because when outside of the digital space, we're faced with the tangible human. The body language is there. The eye contact is easier to make. We're not hearing a digital voice. We're hearing the natural voice. It's very easy to pick up on people's cues, so you can build that awareness of others. In this digital space, we have to be more emotionally aware of what's going on. It's very easy to become disconnected from the other person on the other side of a camera, because we're looking into a camera, we're not looking into their eyes. We can't see half of the body language. So I think we need to develop, let me put it this way, I think we need to fine-tune these behaviors a little bit more than we would do in the normal day-to-day workings.
I think you've answered a question that I had in my mind also about what makes us human. Because as you mentioned, when we phone, if we make a phone call, we are speaking to a robot. We have AI everywhere now. We're not interacting with human beings anymore. And emotions, whether they are good or bad, still make us human beings. It's how we know that we are human beings, because we have those emotions. Because robots can be really intelligent, but I don't think any robot is going to be emotionally intelligent to have that ability, to have empathy. No robot will have that.
No, absolutely. So yes, it becomes, they've done, Gallup did some studies many years ago about the fourth industrial revolution and what competencies and behaviors and skills will become more important in this time. And their study back then, which was quite several years ago now, said that in 2020, this is the list of behaviors and skills that becomes important. And emotional intelligence was number 6 in the list. So with AI and with everything becoming far more technology driven, we do need to remember that as humans, the edge that we have are our emotions, our ability to make those emotional decisions in the moment. The robot, the piece of AI technology, is running a script.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether those scripts are able to at this stage in our development of AI, you never know what could happen with time. And what clever scientists or technologists might come up with. But I don't believe that we could program a robot to feel the emotions that we would feel on a day-to-day basis, given the huge range of emotions that we are. They might be able to act as if they are happy and act as if they are sad, but is it authentic? Don't know.
Yeah. But the more you speak, the more I think, are we still talking about AI, or are we actually talking about human beings? Because you mentioned the word script, and AI is running a script. And I mean, I work with hundreds, thousands of people, and so have you. And you know that people are just running on this like a script. And not many human beings feel. We don't feel. We don't take the time to feel, to properly feel. There's a plethora of emotion. I've been to your workshop. I can't remember the name of it, but it was sometime last year, and you gave us
Reawaken You.
Reawake. It was such a powerful, beautiful workshop, and I managed to shift from the 2 hours that you spent. I just enjoyed this. I'm very lucky and very blessed that I made the decision. It was the right one to come. And you gave us this list of emotions, which I did not even know we had this range of emotions. So we need to educate ourselves. So Alison, just in closing, why would somebody need to come to you? Because I know that you have so much of value to offer the world. But to anybody listening here, why would somebody reach out to you for support?
People would reach out to me for support because they know and they believe that that there is a different experience for them to be had, either in their personal lives or in their professional lives. So what I love to do is help people to understand how they are feeling, but also help people to understand how other people experience them. So people would come to me because they really believe that there is a different experience, a more productive, a more empowering experience for them, either in their personal or professional life.
And I can also share with everybody watching or listening that Alison really is one of the best life coaches that you're going to find out there. So if you ever want to get your ducks in a row, if you ever want to become much more emotionally wise or intelligent, speak to Alison, have a conversation with her. And I know that you offer a 30-minute complimentary session to people. So try Alison out, and you never know how your life can change.
Yeah, it's great to connect with people and just talk, even if it is just for the 30 minutes. So I have an online calendar. People are welcome to book a slot in that calendar themselves. And I welcome those opportunities. I get quite excited to speak to different people and hear where they're at, see what they're up to.
Where do we find you, Alison, online?
So, right, you can find my website is www.revo, R-E-V-O, consultant.com. And I'm on Instagram and Facebook as Revo Consultant, all one word, R-E-V-O, and then Consultant. And yeah, those are the two platforms mainly. And then on LinkedIn, I'm Alison J Coates. 1 L, a J in the middle, and an E at the end of Coates. So maybe we could just type it up in the comments, because
Yes, I will.
it's quite a lot of vowels in my name.
I will do that for you, Alison. Alison, thank you so much for making time to have this conversation. It's been really wonderful and emotionally opening to hear you speak and to share. And I look forward to our next conversation.
Thank you so much, Hitesh. It's been great. I've loved every second of today's conversation.
Great. And thank you for watching or listening. If you love this conversation, please share it with your friends or family. And if you love to hear from Alison, please leave a comment in the comment section below. So until our next conversation, bye now.